referred to in court called Climate Genocide Group, that Gail repeatedly referred to, or tried to refer to, in court called Climate Genocide Act now. A couple of things I just want to kick off with is regarding the criminal justice system itself. There was a trial recently of a police officer. He was called out to attend what we believe was a terrorist attack. And he was racing through the streets of London because his report was stabbings and shootings, gunfire, shots heard, and he crashed his car. And he caused a lot of damage. He did a lot of damage to several vehicles, including his own, and 3 people were, well, severely injured. Nobody was killed, thankfully. And he was put on trial. Now imagine this situation where at his trial he's told he's not allowed to talk about the context, not allowed to mention he was a police officer, not allowed to mention that he was racing to prevent a terrorist atrocity. What if that had happened? What would be the outcry? How would the press react to that? Because he would probably be convicted. He was just a driver driving down the road like a lunatic. Well, he wasn't. He was desperately trying to save lives. Well, you see a connection there, don't you? So he was acquitted, and Sir Mark Rowley, the Metropolitan Police Commissioner, was outraged that this should ever have come to trial. And it goes to the heart of Gail's case, which is you have to have context. And without the context, you cannot have a fair trial. Repeatedly, our judge here, back in July, kept on blocking Gail time and time again. And it became clear that Gail was not going to have the opportunity of a fair trial. There were a series of things that she wanted to say. And he made it clear that he was going to block so much of what she wanted to say. So, on one particularly brave occasion, Gail asked him to recuse himself, that is to stand down as the judge. And we all sat there somewhat nervously about what the reaction was going to be, but the most bizarre thing sort of played out, where Gail read out in detail the bias that was being shown towards her, how unfair the judge was being, and he listened patiently to all of this, and then it felt like he was the defendant. You know, Gail was the prosecutor suddenly, and he was the defendant. And the Crown Prosecution Service barrister stood up and said, "You're doing a wonderful job. You carry on, Your Honour. We don't see anything wrong with what you're doing." And so the Crown Prosecution prosecutor then became the defence counsel, and the judge had to listen to all of this. And he said, well, he'd go and consider all this, and he called for a recess and went outside. And funny enough, when he came back in as a defendant, in this bizarre situation, well, he found himself not guilty. Well, what a bizarre, as Tom Hardy said, it was an Alice in Wonderland moment. You just thought, you know, this is just absolutely crazy situation. One of the other points about the law that Gail tried to bring into this is that, through the work I'm working on, is that we've proven that international criminal law can apply in the context of climate change. That is, the policies that cause mass suffering, mass death, beginning the process of annihilating low-lying island states, can be applied in the context of climate change. The international criminal law was brought into UK legislation by ICCA 2001, and detailed correspondence has taken place between our group and the Metropolitan Police, and they categorically refuse to use the legislation. Now, we have proven our case, and the police have just simply said, well, we're not talking to you anymore. And this is a key point that a lot of people now are using when they're going into court. A lot of our people are using this, and it's helping them to secure acquittals. But Gail was not allowed to put that to a jury. There were so many instances, I can't list them all the arguments that Gail wanted to put to that jury. And Gail was, again, in a very bold situation. I mean, my bottom lip was forever quivering when I listened to Gail in court. But when she was talking to the jury, she said, I've been asked to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, but I'm not allowed to tell you the whole truth. Now, the judge fought Gail every inch of the way. Every time she tried to put together a coherent argument, he would interrupt her, block her, and stop her. According to the BBC, Gail was interrupted 15 times in the most recent trial and prevented from putting together that coherent case. At one point, the judge warned Gail with contempt of court and imprisonment, and on another occasion he said, I can proceed without a jury, I can dispense with the jury and proceed with a judge-only trial, something that we normally only think happens in Northern Ireland during the Troubles when there were threats of people being killed, jurors being killed. And that is what Gail was up against. Gail was continually up against that, and I firmly believe that she's been denied a fair trial, yet Gail maintained her composure throughout. She remained calm and collected, and every time, yeah, she just, yeah, absolute diamond. Gail had several exchanges with the Crown Prosecution Service prosecutor, who is female. It is relevant to mention this on this occasion because the Crown Prosecution prosecutor was very angry and determined to try and get the better of Gail, but failed. And one of the points was, you're not allowed to break the law, you're not allowed to take the law into your own hands. And Gail retaliated, well, you know, without people breaking the law and breaking windows, you wouldn't have had the right to vote, and you wouldn't have the right to stand up and speak in this court, and you wouldn't be allowed to be a barrister. And that seemed to knock the wind out of that person's sails. There was just so much there that I have said on many occasions that it should be made into a movie. I really do. Now, I've got to wrap up because time is tight. There was one other point I wanted to mention. It just slipped my mind. Yes, that's what it was. Today, Gail obviously asked for the absolute discharge. One of the key points that she made was that there have been two recent acquittals. The people who sprayed paint up the outside of the Treasury building using a fire engine, they were acquitted because they were allowed to put their reasons to the jury. The HSBC 9, they were acquitted because they were allowed to put their reasons to the jury. So today, Gail made that point to the judge that you should give me an absolute discharge, and that is the reason is because others have been given this right, and you've denied it to me. Right to the end, Gail fought that judge. And we are so blessed, so lucky to have a Gail Bradbrook in our lives.